Hi, welcome to The Pursuit of Truth. It is the 3rd of October 2018. Got a lot to go through. This might be split up if I don't get time to do it all. I was watching on YouTube Non-Schooling, his YouTube channel. He was mirroring the Morgul's video, The Nazi and Infinite Plane. Really interesting. All the stuff in there, which, I mean, bits of it I already knew, but when someone actually goes through the whole detail, you start to think, well, wait a minute, this is quite a lot of stuff that we don't get taught, or we may get taught over time through, if you watch documentaries on History Channel or Discovery or whatever, you may see bits of this dotted around, and bits of it you may have got at school. I doubt it in school. I don't know where, because I always knew that the Nazi scientists were taken by Britain, America and Russia after the Second World War. Obviously I knew von Braun, the rocket scientist for the Nazis, worked with NASA. The thing is also, because things have happened in the past, you don't always think about the timing of things. Like, I was thinking that it is interesting how the word Nazi and NASA are very similar. If you look at them, the NASA, the Nazi, is just the ZI, and the SA is a 4 character word. And so I was looking at, when did NASA, it was in 1957 they were founded. And obviously von Braun would have been taken from Nazi Germany in 1946 when the war ended. So plenty of time to come up with that name. It's just, I mean, if you were coming up with a name, you'd think you wouldn't be putting a name that was very close to the word NASA and Nazi. Just, it's like you wouldn't name your child Hitler. Or Aldorf, or Summer in this day and age. Well, not without thinking a lot about it. So yeah, it was interesting. The things we don't think about when people say the moon landing was faked. I mean, I know there's a lot of photographic evidence. With lighting errors and flags waving and stuff like that. The makeup of the actual shuttle, the suits, the landing pod, the tin foil and all that kind of stuff. How it got through the Van Allen belt. There was an interesting bit. We're talking to, I assume it was a NASA guy, about flying through the Van Allen belt. He didn't even know he'd flown through it. Didn't even seem to know about his existence or whereabouts. The fact that President Nixon was in charge at the time, Tricky Dicky, one of the most corrupt presidents in American history. Not to say he's the only one, but he was known for his tricky ways, hence the name Tricky Dicky. And we forget about that he was overseeing the Apollo missions. So I don't know if it had been President Kennedy or someone maybe a bit more scrupulous. Not saying that Kennedy was any better than Nixon. We know he had his scandals as well, but it just is interesting that it was Nixon that was the head of state at that time. Okay, so that's enough about that. I was watching Michael Palin in North Korea. I wanted to actually play it, but I've just made lots of notes, and hopefully I can read what I've written. Just about how he came with this mindset of, I come from England, this great place, it's perfect, everything we do here is the right way of doing things, and I'm going to North Korea, a country that's, in his words, totalitarian, a very Orwellian word to use. He came with a negative view and sort of looking at all their things and saying, oh, look at how they do their things there, and sort of reinforcing the image of difference and division, despite us all being human beings and all one species and all exactly the same and all fallible of the same errors, and throughout history, you know, different people make different mistakes. So there was one bit where he was commenting on the posters, that there were no commercial posters, you know, like no McDonald's posters or Coca-Cola posters, and he said, but instead there were propaganda posters. And that was interesting that he saw it like that, because obviously he comes from the West, where we have loads of posters around telling us what to buy and how to be, which you could say is a form of propaganda. It's called advertising. It is to make you go and buy things. But why? But it's just interesting how he thought, just because he is from a country where we do that, he thinks that's a good thing. Well, it might not necessarily be a good thing. Is it a good thing that we have posters up everywhere telling us what we should buy and trying to persuade us to go and buy Coke, or if you do this, you'll look like that. If you buy this product, you'll be better. You know, all these, you know, advertising tricks that they do. You know, maybe it's better not having all these things telling you how to be. Maybe you should have your own mind. So it was just interesting how he saw that. Obviously, there's a problem with when you come from a country, you see your country and you're taught your country is the best and this is how we do things. And, you know, that's why I say about this idea of us as one species and how we can, you know, we're taught everything. Because if you're born in North Korea, you have a certain mindset. If you're born in England, you have a certain mindset. And if you go to each other's countries, you'll say, oh, well, that's a bit weird that you're doing that. And you'll see it as negative, and you'll see your things as positive. We're exactly the same species, it's just we were taught different ways. That means that the teaching, is it true? Because how can you have two different teachings? So then he went into a classroom. He wanted to play the old... you know, you could see his intentions. His intentions were to sort of say, oh, this classroom, they're all, you know, under the regime, and, you know, they're not thinking for themselves, and they're, you know, so he blew up a globe. He got out a globe and he blew it up in front of them. I just wish someone had shouted out to him, Michael, the world's flat, it's not round, so do you think you know more than us? And he wanted to sort of quiz them of like, can you point out where Britain is? Can you point out where Australia, Europe, blah, blah, blah? Can you name some countries? As if, you know, wait a minute, if you did that in some London schools, you'd be surprised you might get worse results. And if you go to America, well, we all know the joke about Americans not knowing the world. So wait a minute, what are you trying to prove there? And then he said about, oh, he doesn't think the children were being taught critical thinking. Wait a minute, come back to England, Michael. Children aren't being taught critical thinking here either. If you ask a child to question something they've been taught at school, do you think they're going to think for themselves? No, they're just going to regurgitate the things that they've been taught. Hence the word taught. Sorry if this seems a bit attacky for Michael. I do like him, I found him funny. I know he's a Python, and what was that one he did after? I loved that show. Not Rippling, something like that. Yarns, Ripping Yarns, was it? And obviously, I watched the program because I liked him in Around the World in 80 Days and Pole to Pole. All right. So what else is there? The propaganda posters. Yeah. So he talked about propaganda posters. He asked someone about propaganda posters and talking about how they put them up. About, you know, they're supposed to be informative and, you know, telling you things and this, that and the other. And I thought, wait a minute, when he comes back to England and walks around and sees all the council posters telling people that they can be university students, or like the one I put on YouTube, and there's many council posters out there, does he call them propaganda posters? Doing exactly the same thing, Michael. Do you not realise that? But you don't call them propaganda posters, do you? Then he went to where there's big statues of the two North Korean leaders of the past, and there were these big statues, and he was going on about that, and I think they were trying to suggest, you know, by the camera angles and stuff, that, oh look, they made these big statues of these people like they think they're gods or something. Wait a minute, he's not been to Nelson's column before? Nelson's column's a huge great statue, you can't even see bloody Nelson on the top of it. Is that tall? And I'm sure there's lots of, you know, different ones, the Churchill and all sorts of things. In South Africa, if you go, there's a statue of Mandela, a huge one. So what are you trying to say? The then he was talking about the past and stuff like that of North Korea, and I was thinking, wait a minute, because he talked about human rights things, and wait a minute, he comes from Britain. Does he not remember our history of colonialism? Does he not remember how many countries we've been around in the past and we've stolen their countries, we've murdered their people, we've poisoned them, we've divided countries up and caused wars? You don't remember any of those injustices and inequalities that your own country did to other people on this planet? And you want to talk about other people's human rights? Come on, know your history. And then he was talking about displays of weapons, you know, when they do those big displays of weapons. Does he not know in the UK we do the pageantry? The Queen does it twice a year. She displays horses and weapons and armies and bands and all sorts of things. Yeah, it's not quite the same, but it's still the same kind of thing, isn't it? And he went on about nuclear weapons, obviously, because North Korea are not allowed to have nuclear weapons because America doesn't want them to have them. America being the only people who've ever used nuclear weapons against human beings. Bloody hell. What else was there? So there's a bit I can't read here. Let me have a quick thing. I think that's enough anyway. I can't read what it says, but same. Maybe I was just saying the same could be said in the UK. But yeah, that's just episode 1 of Michael Palin in North Korea. It just is a shame that he didn't have some critical thinking himself and actually look at, you know, think about things a little bit more rather than just take what he's been taught and thought, you know, because he's been seen on the media how North Korea is, yeah, it's different. I won't necessarily want to live there, you know, because it does seem, well, I don't know, because do I know? I've never been there, so is it true what they say there? I mean, they made out that he needed 2 people to go around with him to make sure he's not allowed to do or show certain things. I mean, I don't know if that was true or not, or they just sent people to guide him around. I mean, I've only got his word for that. I mean, I've never been there, so I don't really know. Maybe I shouldn't make a judgment, because that's what we often do a lot. So lastly, I just want to go on about Subtle Infinity. I was watching his Instagram compilations, 11 to 14. They're really good. They're full of lots of stuff. I can't go through all of it, but they're really good because they have lots of different topics: flat Earth, racism, division, inequality, injustices, lots of chemtrail, the food we, all that kind of stuff. So the things that I picked out, there was an archbishop they were asking about child abuse. It looked like he was being interviewed or questioned, and he just kept saying he couldn't remember. And they asked him about, like, did you know, when did you know that having sex with a child was illegal? And he said he didn't know. And they were asking him, what back in the 70s, did you know then? And he just kept saying he didn't know. He was being disingenuous. I mean, if you've committed a crime and you're meant to be a priest, you're meant to be following all the good tenets that are in the Bible, the Quran, or whatever, then if you've made a mistake, you've got to own it. And for him to sort of say, oh, I don't know that it was illegal. What do you mean you don't know it was illegal? You don't know it was wrong? Are you serious? I mean, I think the person, he just wanted to give as much pause as possible to actually make us think that this guy is actually really saying this. And then there was a video of policemen manhandling young children. Obviously their mother was being arrested and the children weren't happy about it, and like, why would you do that? It just, the injustice of the police, especially in America, is shocking. There was bits about stolen land. There was this good example where there was an example of a boy stole something from another boy, and then he passed it on to his son, and then his son, and then he was asking, like, whose was this? Was it yours, or was it the boy's, you know, who it was stolen from? You know, to talk about America and how it was stolen from the indigenous people there. Reza Islam had some good bits on the food we eat and the flu injection, mercury, and all that stuff that we put inside us. And there was a lot about food, actually, and alkaline diets being better for our bodies and how they should be, and all the acid things makes our bodies have these diseases and stuff like that. It's very interesting because we're not taught that. We go and buy things, not realising what we're putting in our body could actually be causing these problems, or could actually be, you know, not actually good for us, but we don't know any better because we think, oh yeah, meat's good and milk's good. You know, we're all taught these things, but we don't really know. And the problem is you keep finding out that things are not good for you, but the problem is that it's difficult for people to stop eating the things that they've traditionally been eating all this time. But it should be that the role of government and health and safety of government to police this. And if they know that things are not good for us, they really shouldn't be on the shelves for us to buy. Otherwise, how are you bringing up a good country or a nation or a people if you're allowing them to do that damage? Now we're going into North Korean territory, aren't we? See, so then people are saying, well, no, they shouldn't be told what we can and can't buy. But the problem is sometimes we won't help ourselves out. You know, if we know that meat is a carcinogenic and it causes cancer, you shouldn't be eating it. And if it's not nice to kill animals, then if we stopped doing that and made it legal, maybe it'd actually be better for us. Sometimes we do need to be, you know, that allowing us to do every desire that we want is not always a good thing. As you can see, there's lots of things that we agree, a majority of us agree that are bad. So we do need that consensus sometimes, but it just seems to me that there isn't enough information. And maybe like with cigarettes, they put on the picture that this can cause cancer. They need to start actually printing that on food if they're not going to, you know, if they don't want to stop people from buying things. It should actually be printed on food. This could cause cancer, or this, you know, alkaline products are better for your body because that's how your body works. Anyway, take care, take it easy. God bless and peace.